At the end of the last episode, we left the story in 2003. A father dead, a 10-year-old boy saying it was an accident, a coroner agreeing, case closed. For years, that is where it stayed, but nearly a decade later, something shifted. Corey Breininger was a senior in high school. In an English class assignment, he was asked to write about something that had profoundly affected him. He wrote about the shooting. His teacher read it. The details concerned her enough that she brought it to a guidance counselor. Now, according to testimony, she was told the situation was being handled. And at that point, the accident ruling had not changed. There had been no reopening, no criminal investigation. The file from 2003 remained closed. Then came a conversation at a baseball game. Corey was speaking with a teacher. During that conversation, he made a statement indicating that the shooting had not been an accident. That disclosure was reported. Law enforcement was notified, and for the first time since November 3rd, 2003, investigators pulled the file back off the shelf. The question was no longer whether a tragedy had occurred. The question was rather the original explanation had been wrong. Tonight, we examine how a closed case became an open one. Hey Angela, how's it going tonight?
Hi John, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Good, huh?
Yeah, I have no complaints.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
Wouldn't do any good if I did.
I mean, that's true too.
What are your complaints? What do you mean?
We don't have time for that.
This isn't a therapy show?
This is not the platform.
No?
No.
All right. Well.
I've been thinking though about where we left off last time, and I'm not sure if I like where this is headed.
Yeah, same. Episode 1 kind of felt settled, tragic, but settled. And then all of a sudden it doesn't. So welcome back, listeners, to Dark Dialogue, the podcast where we unravel the shadows of the human mind and dive deep into the mysteries that haunt small towns and big cities alike. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Angela, and together we shine a light on the stories that keep us up at night, unsolved disappearances, life stolen too soon, and the questions that refuse to be buried.
If you're just joining us, this is a 3-part investigative arc investigating the 2003 shooting death of Robert Breininger in rural Ohio, a death originally ruled accidental. In the first episode, we reconstructed the day exactly as authorities understood it at the time. A father asleep, a 10-year-old boy holding a rifle, a 911 call, an accident ruling. No conspiracy, no reopened file, just tragedy. If you haven't listened to that episode, I strongly recommend you go back and do that before listening to this one. Question?
Yeah.
Go.
I was part of that episode, so the boy was not holding the rifle. They were irritated that the rifle was on.
Fine.
How am
Frantic 911 call.
How am I confused here?
The boy was holding the rifle when it went off. The father was asleep.
Semantics.
The 10-year-old boy was holding the rifle when it went off.
I'm a very literal person.
Better now?
A little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Thank you.
Anytime. So tonight we're going to move forward. This episode focuses on how that closed file was pulled back off the shelf nearly a decade later and why. Now, before we go any further, we need to say something clearly. This arc includes discussions of child harm and suicidal ideation. It focuses on investigative developments, not graphic detail, but the next episode will address some really difficult material. So if that's something that's too heavy for you, take that into account and take care of yourself first.
And before we get into it, especially for those listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're following the show. Following means new episodes download automatically, and that helps the platform recognize that the content is being actively listened to. If you've been here for a while, leaving a written review matters more than most people realize. Star ratings help, but written reviews are what really push visibility in Apple's system. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell.
And for all the rest of the platforms out there, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Music, all the rest of them, give us a like, give us a follow, whatever it is that your platform allows. Those actions aren't about ego. They directly impact whether stories like this surface in search results and recommendation feeds. Algorithms don't understand nuance. They measure engagement, and engagement helps victim-centered work travel further. So now, at the end of the last episode, we introduced two moments that disrupted the narrative: a senior year English paper and a conversation at a baseball game. Now, for nearly 10 years, the accident ruling stood without formal challenge. No homicide investigation, no grand jury, no indictment. What we examined tonight is not hindsight, it's process. How did a closed accidental death case become a criminal investigation? What changed? And how did authorities respond when it did? That's where we're headed. All right, so on debrief last week, you had all kinds of questions and you were going crazy because you didn't have any answers. So hopefully tonight you're going to get some answers.
I better, Dad blasted.
And for those of you that are not Patreon members, Debrief is our Patreon-only show where we kind of just sit back and discuss the case and the questions we have and some of my investigation into it and some of the stuff that you don't get on the regular show. So, and that's available only on Patreon. So this first segment, we're going to talk about the English paper. That's kind of where we left off. We kind of gave a little bit of a kernel, a teaser, whatever you want to call it, about this English assignment. So in 2012, Corey is now a senior in high school, and his English teacher, Charlene Grant, assigned a paper that asked the students to write about something that had a profound impact on their life. One of the true crime shows, and I do list them at the end of either this episode or the next, the ones that it's on. I'm pretty sure that the one that I'm talking about is on Evil Lives Here. And Corey actually does read a section out of that English paper, which is pretty freaking heart-wrenching and tear-jerking. But other than that, I could not find the paper. To quote it. It's nowhere in any of the court testimony. So it was never read in court. It was never introduced into evidence. I couldn't find it. It doesn't really matter because essentially he says when he shot his dad, it wasn't an accident. So, I mean, that's pretty freaking huge.
Yeah.
It didn't read like a formal murder confession. It wasn't like I plotted to kill my dad.
Right.
It was nothing like that. It was just, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't the story that I told everybody. And so obviously his teacher, Grant, was alarmed. We talked about this the last episode. She took it to the guidance counselor. The guidance counselor said that it's being handled. So Grant did not make a separate report to the police or to CPS. And so again, it's not something that I know the exact time frame on, but I do know that it wasn't that much in front of the baseball game.
Okay.
So we know that the baseball game happened in March of 2012. And like I said before, I don't know exactly how long between the English paper and the baseball game, but it was likely days to maybe a few weeks or so. I can't say exactly, but it wasn't very long.
Okay.
Now, the teacher that was, and this was something that you had a little bit of confusion about in episode 1.
Yeah.
You were under the assumption that it was the same teacher, but it wasn't. The teacher that he met at the baseball game was a teacher by the name of Lauren Beck. And Lauren Beck was his first grade PE teacher. So we have a senior
that makes more
English
sense.
teacher, and then he ran into one of his first grade teachers at the baseball game.
Wonder what possessed him.
We're going to get there. I think by the end of tonight's episode, you're going to really kind of understand why things broke open when they did. Because there's a very logical reason. So Obviously, Corey had known Lauren Beck since first
Forever.
yeah. And so it was, it was somebody that he had trusted pretty much all of his life. Now, I don't know what kind of a relationship they had, but a lot of like first grade, second grade kids really develop a strong relationship with their teachers. It's, an adult figure. And
it's home away from home.
It's home away from home, but then we're going to be talking about kind of what Corey's life was like at home.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the best home life, I think that you even might form stronger relationships with teachers at school because they're adults that don't hurt you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so at that baseball game, Corey said two things to her that really raised red flags. And that was that Judith had been physically abusing him his whole life. And also that Judith had forced him to shoot Robert.
I knew it.
And so, this is really the first time that he's really made this overt confession about these two very critical things. And so obviously him and Beck had a very emotional conversation.
No doubt.
At that baseball game. I can't even imagine a kid. And yeah, he's a senior in high school. He's 18 years old, but he's a freaking kid. And he's a kid that you've known since first grade. I can't even imagine them coming up to you and being like, okay, number one, I've been violently abused for the last 8 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I killed my dad because I was forced to do so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. What do you do with that once you pick your jaw up off the floor?
Yeah. But she assured him that, she was going to help. She was here for him. She'd do everything she could, whatever. She was super sweet about it and everything. The next day, she went to the guidance counselor.
Same guidance counselor?
I believe so, but I don't know for sure because she's a first grade teacher, so it's possible that it would have been an elementary school guidance counselor. I don't know.
It seems like you'd want to cut out the game of telephone here.
Yeah, I kind of agree. But, I don't remember if we talked about it in the last episode or if it was in the debrief episode, but, it's like I said then, it's possible that these teachers are like, I don't know how to handle this. I should, I don't know if this is real. Is this something that is like a mental health thing or
might be bound by chain of command too, but still.
Yeah, I don't imagine that she would be because it was completely off school. It was a baseball game. Now, I don't know if it was like a school sponsored baseball game or not, but and I don't think that a school could ever get away with saying you're not allowed to go to the police. So I seriously doubt that. But I do think that it was.
I don't know that anybody can get away with saying you're not allowed to go to the police.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Legally. I mean, they say it. People say it all the time, but.
But another component of this too is that might be, and I am just spitballing here. Okay. None of this is in the record, but if I was in her situation, would I say, how do I handle this? Because this kid, obviously, I believe him. He was forced to do this. How do I handle this in a way that he doesn't get freaking arrested? What's the best way to handle this? Because this is a touchy situation. Maybe she just needed some advice. I don't know. What I do know is the police spoke to her right away after this. It did get reported to the police. Now, again, I don't know. I have my suspicions that the English paper and the baseball game happened in very close proximity to each other, and that it was almost a continuation of the same report. And I say that because everything else that you watch, and even some of the other podcast coverage that I've listened to on this case, they frame it as a single incident, and it's always just the English paper. It was not just the English paper. It was two separate incidents.
Okay.
Why they decide to cut out the baseball game, I'm not entirely sure of, but I suspect it's because they were almost right on top of each other, and it just kind of complicates the story as we're discovering.
Right.
But it's
muddies the waters.
It does. But it's the way it happened. And so
It needs to
That's
be
how we're
told the
gonna
way
tell
it's
it.
happened. Yeah.
What we can say for certain is that on March 23rd of 2012, Deputy Vandemark re-interviews Corey, and Corey tells him that it was an intentional shooting. It was not an accident, and that Judith had directed him to do it. And so the case effectively reopens. Now, as heartbreaking as it is, Corey would say that he was absolutely surprised that he wasn't arrested immediately. He expected to be.
Yeah.
And
He's gearing up for it.
he
Probably.
even asked the cop, like, aren't you going to arrest me? And the cop was like, no, we're not going to arrest you, but we are going to dig into this. That interview, like I said, happened on March 23rd. And this is Deputy Doug Vandemark, who was the same deputy that responded to the scene
back in the day.
Back in the original shooting. Yep. And the first interview actually occurred in the high school principal's office. So they came to the school. And that's another reason why I think it was relatively quickly. It wasn't like, okay, so, this year he wrote an English paper. A year later, it was at a baseball game.
Didn't feel like that.
I think that, and I also think that if that would have been the case, that the police would have called him into their office and interviewed him at the police station as opposed to going to the high school to interview him. So, and again, he says that he intentionally shot his dad and that Judith had told him to do it. Now, the next really interesting part is, and we talked about this in episode 1, that Judith had told him that Robert had brain cancer and that he was dying. And the part that I intentionally left out of that discussion in episode 1 was she also said that Robert wanted to die and that Robert wanted the family to receive the life insurance policy. And so Robert wanted him to kill him. Robert wanted Corey to kill him.
But Robert didn't want Corey to know in the same breath.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what she told him. Keeping in mind that Corey is 10 years old.
Yeah.
And that Judith has been his primary custodian and caregiver for several years before this. And so Corey believed her. And that whole conversation about the cancer happened roughly a month before the shooting occurred. So the timing definitely makes it more believable for me too. Because it was like, he was told about it and then within a month he's shooting his dad.
No, I thought you were looking at me like I had something to say and I was just shrugging that I didn't.
Oh, no. Now, on the day of the shooting, according to Corey, Judith reminded him, she didn't really remind him. He was supposed to have killed his dad before. His dad took him out to teach him how to...
Excuse me, what?
He was supposed to have killed his dad before.
And he failed and she was mad at him for it.
Yes.
Okay.
She had arranged it for Corey to tell his dad that he wanted to learn about hunting. And he wanted his dad to take him hunting. And so that's how this all originally started. So Corey approached his dad and said, I want to go hunting and I would like for you to teach me how to hunt. And the whole thing was Judith had set this all up so that they would go out hunting. Corey was supposed to, quote unquote, accidentally shoot his dad during this hunting trip. And then everything would be clean and clear. And it wouldn't be near as complicated as what happens when you kill somebody in their bed.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be near as messy.
But conveniently, the other two kids didn't want to learn how to hunt.
Oh, no, of course not.
Okay.
But when they went out, Corey would later say, like, this was the first time I got to actually spend time with my dad. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And he said that he remembered thinking how, disappointed he was in himself because he knew how much his dad wanted him to do it. But he just couldn't do it because she had told him that his dad was counting on him to kill him so that they could get the life insurance money, but he just couldn't do it. And so with that knowledge, the day of the shooting, and we talked about a little bit of this, but I kept a lot of these details back.
Mm-hmm.
The day of the shooting, Judith was there to meet the kids when they got off the school bus. Do you remember me telling that?
Yeah.
Well, a neighbor would later testify how odd that was because Judith never met the kids at the school bus. And then she also, after Corey got off the school bus, the other two kids went to the house, and her and Corey, she gave Corey a hug and was talking to him. And the neighbor also would testify how odd that was because she never hugged Corey. She was a absolute bitch, actually. So the exact quote is, and this is from neighbor Tara Thomas. And this is the neighbor that said that she never liked Hawkey because Hawkey used vulgar language. But she would testify that on the day of the shooting, she saw Hawkey meet Corey when he got off the bus, put her arm around him in an affectionate manner, and speak to him while they were walking to the house. She found this unusual because she did not recall Hawkey showing Corey affection any other time, and Thomas did not think it was right that Corey was required to shovel the drive in the winter before he went to school. Essentially, this neighbor testified that Judith is a bitch. She never treated Corey well at all, and it was so unusual to show him any kind of affection that
it's shocking when it happens.
Yeah, raised red flags.
Oh, it's terrible.
But according to Corey, that when she gave him a hug and pulled him close and had a conversation, Judith was telling him, today's the day. The gun is in the laundry room. We're getting ready to leave. You're going to do this, period. It happens today. You're out of options.
Was there an or else?
We're going to get to that, but there was always an or else with Judith. We might as well say it again. Warning, warning, trigger warning. We're going to be talking about child abuse, and it's coming right now. So Corey would later say that Judith had beat him his entire life. Some beatings were extremely severe, and that she would stage, and this is weird as shit, and we'll get into it a little bit more in the next section, but she would stage these incidents to make Corey appear unstable, and she would. A
10-year-old?
Oh yeah. We'll get all into it in the next segment.
Okay.
For sure. Then she coached him on exactly what to say to the police. So she pretty much laid all this out. She had bought in the hunting magazines. She had everything ready to go. Everything was kind of laid out in position. And then she coached him on, once you shoot him, you call 911. This is what you say. You guys were talking about hunting. The gun accidentally went off. All of that kind of stuff. So according to Corey, that's how all of this transpired. So as far as Corey as a 10-year-old kid goes, he believed that his dad was dying of cancer. He believed that his dad wanted him to shoot him because he needed the family to get the life insurance money. A 10-year-old kid is not going to be like, well, can we get the life insurance money if you die of cancer? That's not.
Yeah.
A 10-year-old kid has no freaking clue how insurance works.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just going to be like, okay.
You probably told him it had to look like an accident.
Yeah, or not even go into it at all. I don't think you would have to with a 10-year-old. They don't know what insurance is.
Back then, but now.
Even now.
I don't know.
Even now, a 10-year-old is not going to be like,
some of them are pretty smart.
what's the premium on that policy? Is there an accident rider?
I didn't say it was that deep. There's adults who aren't going to say that.
I just don't think any 10-year-old ever is going to have a clue what you're talking about. They don't even probably understand what insurance is. 10 is young.
I know, but anyway.
So,
what's the premium? We should not be laughing during this, but okay.
So he thought that he was helping his family financially.
Yeah.
He thought he was doing what his dad wanted him to do.
Being the man of the house now.
Right. Which,
Quotes.
not really, but
Yeah.
he was afraid of what would happen if he didn't do what he was told, which we'll get into that, like I said, in just a second. But he was interviewed formally by Catherine Cannell, who is an FBI child adolescent forensic interview specialist.
And shout out to people who are strong enough to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be tough. It would be really tough.
Yeah.
So the formal recorded session, the formal session was recorded. None of that's available. I imagine a lot of that has to do with the fact that although he was 18 at the time of the interview, it was discussions of what occurred when he was a minor. And so all that falls into the minor basket where you're not allowed to know any of that. I don't want to listen to it anyway. Like I said, Corey has given interviews where he talks about it. So it's not like it's a big freaking secret.
Yeah.
And when you listen to this guy, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I freaking believe him 100%. Like, I do not think this guy's lying about this shit. And if he was, what's the point of ever coming forward?
They essentially got away with it. So yeah.
Not essentially, he 100% got away with it. He was totally in the clear.
I use that word a lot. Just let me use the word.
Yes, he essentially got away with it. Yes. And during that interview, he repeats that it was an intentional shooting. He repeats that he was coerced by Judith. He repeats the whole brain cancer insurance narrative. And he repeats the abuse claims. And then he asks if...
And his story never changes?
No.
Nice. Okay.
And then
not nice, but...
Yeah. And then he asks if he's going to go to jail. You know, again, I mean, he just assumed... Yeah. Once this comes out, he was going to go to jail, which is another reason that I believe him. You know? He
just accepted it and was expecting it.
Yep.
Okay.
So, you know, these statements essentially transform the case. Yeah, I mean, not essentially. It goes from...
That's my word, John.
It goes from accidental death investigation to now the coroner's looking back into this case because now there's been an allegation of homicide. And so obviously the investigation formally escalates to the next level. And everybody's now looking back into this saying, what the hell? And then a lot of the shit that didn't really seem to fit, now it's like, okay, now we're really digging into why we don't think this fits.
Bells are ringing, lights are going off. I think the word you were looking for was effectively changed the case.
Yeah, there you go.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, English teacher.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we got to talk about the physical abuse that Corey claims he endured living with this.
To be honest, is asshat gender specific?
I suppose asshat is not gender specific. I suppose I can't speak English.
John talks, take two.
I don't think that it's really gender specific, but I think I'll go with something better, like asshatina.
Asshatina.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. So this freaking asshatina.
We don't even know if that means something somewhere else. Anyway.
No, we don't. But okay, so according to Corey, this starts almost immediately.
Okay.
Now, I told you in episode 1 that the first time that he ever met this bitch, Robert took him to her house to watch him while Robert went to work.
Right.
And at that first drop off, her daughter, Emily, was roughly the same age as Corey. And when they got there, Judith told Corey, you do not go into Emily's closet. Do not go into Emily's closet, which strikes me as an odd thing anyway, right?
Do you see the look on my face? Yeah.
Yeah. And then according to Corey...
Just her closet.
Yes.
Okay.
And then according to Corey, Emily was like, you know, let's play some game or whatever. Go in my closet and hide. And so he went in the closet. And then Emily immediately started hollering for Judith because Corey went in her closet. And then Judith came up and just beat the piss out of him with a belt.
So Judith is raising another bitch.
If Corey is correct, I mean, if he's telling the truth, I think it was all set up by Judith to begin with. I think Judith coached Emily.
But that's what I'm saying.
On
now
exactly
she's raising her to.
I have no idea about Emily. I can't say whether she turned out like her mom or not. I don't know, but I just know what Corey said happened.
Okay.
And that Judith beat him mercilessly with a belt and then told him, threatened him in some way, and I can't remember exactly what the threat was, but that when his dad got there, he better tell him that he had a good time and he wants to come back.
Oh.
And so he did.
But Dad didn't see bruises or anything?
Not at that time, and I don't know if she necessarily left bruises at that time.
Mercilessly indicates bruises to me.
Well, we do know that according to Corey, the significant abuse began before second grade. And initially, it did leave visible bruising on his arms, on his face, on his torso.
That's why I wore long sleeves and...
Exactly, because the teacher started questioning him about it, and then the teachers questioned him about the bruises, which we talked about in episode 1. And so that's when Judith shifted the beatings to hidden areas. And then according to Corey, that's also when the genital beatings started.
Oh, no.
Where she would burn his genitals and, whip him in the genitals and threaten to cut off his genitals and this kind of thing so that the marks would be concealed and nobody would ever see it. It creates this pattern of abuse that we see in all kinds of domestic abuse, whether it be spousal abuse, whether it be child abuse. This is something that a lot of spousal abuse survivors will attest to as well, that their abusers will punch them in the stomach instead of smacking them in the face or, whatever, so that they don't leave marks that anybody can see. So according to Corey, the beatings occurred daily. He would be beat with a belt every day. He would be struck with objects. He reported that he was beaten unconscious on multiple different occasions, that he was covering his bruises on a regular basis. So the abuse was described as routine. And then throughout his childhood, it escalated. He'd be forced to hold static positions for hours. And some of this stuff, I gotta say, the descriptions make it believable to me. Because, like forced to hold static positions for hours is something that you do see a lot in abusive situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not sexy or glamorous if you're making up a story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it makes it more believable. And he would say that he would be beaten if he moved. So he'd basically be made to stand like a statue, and if he moved at all, he would be beaten. Keep in mind, this is like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. So we're talking a little boy.
Yeah.
He would be locked in an enclosed porch for extended periods, hours. He would be forced to ingest both his own and dog feces.
Oh, geez.
He'd be thrown into a pond while he was wearing heavy clothing, and then she'd laugh at him as he tried to freaking swim for his life. He was ordered to climb scaffolding and then let go and just fall.
Oy.
He'd be thrown into ice baths and made to sit in them. She'd fill the bathtub full of ice water and then make him sit in there for hours. And then the one time that she had him in the bathtub naked and she was threatening to cut off his genitals with a knife, and his dad happened to walk in, and Judith immediately shifted and said, "Look what I just caught your son doing. He was trying to cut off his own penis, and I caught him and I stopped him." And then, like I said, she'd burn his genitals with a lighter. She'd threatened to cut him off with a butter knife. She forced him to dress up like a girl. She always was teasing him and making statements about him becoming a girl. She took naked photographs of him and then would threaten him with them, threatened to show his friends at school. So she would use those photographs to control him and humiliate him. And then this part is exceptionally strange, and it's one that I can't say that I've ever heard about. I don't think that I have ever heard about it. Maybe it goes on more than I realized, but she basically set him up to become crazy and for his dad to start hating him, which honestly worked, because she would this is nuts as shit, but she would take a video camera and she would have this conversation with him and basically say, you're going to destroy your room. You're going to throw your toys all over. You're going to throw a big fit. You're going to act like a wild man. And then she'd get the video camera all ready and she would make him throw stuff and whatever and act like he's pitching a big fit. And then when Robert would come home, she'd show him the video and be like, see what your son did? He's out of control. And then she would coach him, you're going to cause a lot of problems. And he said that it was I either made my dad hate me or I get beat. So, one of the things was throwing a football in the house, and his dad would say no, and he would just keep doing it until his dad would lose his mind. And then another time when his dad was sleeping, she was like, you're going to take this glass of ice water and go throw it on your dad while he's sleeping.
Oh, geez.
And so she would just set this stuff up to essentially make Robert hate Corey. And it kind of worked. He was at his wit's end. He was like, I am freaking fed up with this kid. And it was all a ruse, at least according to Corey. He would testify that Hawkey tried to make Robert think that he was crazy. He described the recordings of him acting like a wild man. He staged the videos, and Dr. Knox characterized them as psychological abuse that was intended to isolate Corey from Robert, which makes perfect sense. And it's a pattern to destabilize the perception of the child and then isolate that child from the protective parent so that Judith then can have total control over everything.
And so the other parents see, well, your kids are good kids. What's wrong with my kid?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Ostracize him from the entire family.
From the entire family. Exactly. So then he would go on to testify that, once Robert was dead, then Judith obviously was the adopted parent. And so the abuse continued. The abuse, why would it change just because he did what he was?
She liked it too much. There's no way she would have changed.
Yeah. And so he wasn't allowed to go to counseling for his dad's death. She was told that she wasn't going to spend the money on nonsense like that. He wasn't allowed really to play with his friends it was just the quintessential abusive household. Neighbors would testify that, they would see the other kids out playing in the street or, playing in the yard or something, but would never see Corey out there playing with them. So one of the neighbors, Ronnie Philpott, testified that he lived across the street from Corey and his family for a short period of time. And during that period of time, he did not see Corey out with the neighborhood children at all. And then this Ronnie Philpott is going to become a big part of Corey's story here in not very long. We're going to get to it here pretty quick. So, and then there was continued threats in the household. She would continually tell him that that if he ever told what really happened, she was going to kill him. And then and
of course he'd believe it, because how far she'd pushed it already.
Oh, yeah. And then she also said, because of the fact that she had got him on video so many times and used those videos against him so many times, she had kind of pre-programmed him for this. So then she would also say, I had a hidden camera in that room and I have it on video of you shooting your dad. And if you ever say anything, you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life. I'm going to turn this video over and you're going to go to prison for the rest of his life. But then on the other side of that coin, she would continually, basically psychologically abuse him by pointing out that he killed his father and what a dirty little bastard he was for killing his father and stuff. I mean, she's a sadistic bitch. So obviously, this reinforced the fear of exposure. He's going to go to prison. And so it maintained his compliance through threat. Now, we did talk about in episode 1 that, Judith got a substantial insurance payout when Robert died. And so she bought recreational items for all 3 of the kids. And then she bought a freaking really nice car for Corey. And I don't know exactly what it was. It was kind of like a freaking really badass, like muscle car, like I don't know, 66 GTO or something along those lines. It was a freaking badass car. And he was really, really proud of it. Like he wasn't old enough to drive, but every day he'd get home from school and like go wax it and clean it. And I just couldn't wait until he was old enough to turn 16 so he could get his license and stuff like that. And so from the outside looking in, Judith looks like a freaking phenomenal parent who's a single parent who adopted this kid, who's doing just an amazing job and treating him so good and bought him this car. And then right when he turned 16, she sells the car. He never even got to drive it.
We're just compounding hate for this woman. Just hate and hate and hate and hate.
She's a bitch. She's an asshat Tina. I'm telling you, 100%.
I think bitch is
asshat
worse.
Tina. Then we also have a boy that is coming into his teenage years, and a 16-year-old is a whole hell of, trust me, and you had a boy too, trust you. A 16-year-old boy is a whole lot harder to manage than a 10-year-old boy. Yeah. And so he's getting he's growing.
Actually, mine was more difficult at 10.
So was mine, really. He used to throw these god-awful fits and stuff. Yeah. But Corey's growing.
But they're bigger, yeah.
And, Judith isn't, she's not like 6'4", 315 pounds of solid muscle. She's a relatively small woman. Corey's getting to the point where physically she's not a tremendous threat. She is still abusing him physically at this point. Yeah. But he's also getting to the point where he's getting fed up with it. And then finally it reaches its boiling point and she attacks him, and he's physically attacks him. And he's like, okay, bitch, I'm done with you. You can kiss my ass and I'm gone. So he moves out. So you remember Ronnie Philpott who I talked about? And I think that's how you say his name. It's PHLI. POTS, but I think that would be Philpott. That's what we're going to call it anyway. Okay. So they were, like I said, they were neighbors. Him and his wife, Christy, who lived nearby, they knew the family, and Corey moved in with them after the final argument. And, they would confirm that he lived with them for an extended period of time. As, he kind of went through the rest of his high school years. They described him as always very polite, very helpful, did the chores, was just overwhelmingly grateful to them.
And for being treated like a human?
Never caused them problems or anything like that. And so, but they didn't initially know the full story. They just thought they were helping out this neighbor kid that got in a fight with his mom or whatever, or him and Judith couldn't get along. And I don't think that any of the neighbors thought too highly of Judith. Maybe some of them did, but they didn't come out in court and say she was a wonderful neighbor. The ones in court were like, she was a strange bitch, or she had a foul mouth. We never really liked her. I mean, you didn't have a bunch of neighbors that were like, she was wonderful. She was the best neighbor ever. So I don't know. Then after he moved out, Judith would then again confront him and tell him that, and remind him, I have a video and if you ever say anything to anybody about what happened, you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life. I'll release the video. You're going to go to prison for the rest of your life. So obviously, Corey explained that was a big part of the reason that he stayed quiet all those years, because he didn't want to go to prison for killing his dad. And she had proof of this. And so no matter what he said, she had a video of him killing his dad. And so when I told you before that Judith would make him climb the scaffolding and then let go, and one would be like, why the hell would a kid ever let go? Like, how would you ever convince a kid to let go? Corey said he let go because he was hoping he would die. It was really a suicide attempt at Judith's prodding. It was a serious freaking injury. He was actually airlifted to a trauma center after this. So it was not like he, fell down and sprained his ankle or something.
Yeah.
It had to have been pretty tall scaffolding because it was a serious injury, but he would later say that it was a suicide attempt at a pretty young age. I don't know exactly how old we're talking, but definitely preteens. And then when he was living with the Philpotts, Ronnie came home and he found a note that Corey had left saying he was going to kill himself. And he found Corey just bawling his head off in distress and
So he was over 16 at this time.
He was over 16. This is after he had moved in with the Philpotts. That's correct. And that, he told him that he wanted to kill himself. And Ronnie testified that he was concerned that there were guns in the house and stuff like that. He took Corey to the hospital. Corey was evaluated. You know how it goes with a suicide thing. And so this would have been in 2011 that he was hospitalized for depression and suicidal tendencies. But during that whole period of time, he still maintained that the shooting was an accident. He did not disclose that it was all a planned ordeal. He didn't disclose the abuse. He didn't disclose that Judith had coerced him to lie and everything like that. It really does go to the point. It goes to the understanding that this whole idea of coming forward was a gradual process, which again makes it more believable to me because that's how human behavior works. You don't just wake up one day and be like, today's the day, by God, I'm going to go and tell the cops that I killed my dad. You go through this process.
You're working up the guts.
Well, not only that, but you're also going through this emotional process of, at first, okay, I can't tell anybody because I'm going to go to prison, so I'm going to kill myself. And then maybe you can't kill yourself or somebody stops you from killing yourself or whatever. And so it's a process that you go through. And then the other part of the thing that I think is very, very important to this is he left this bitch's house. He left this bitch's house. He's living somewhere else. Now he's in a safe environment where he's not being abused every freaking day. And that kind of lets things slow down. And it's not simmering all of the time. And granted, he moved out when he was 16, but 16 to 18 is not that big of a time. And for abuse survivors, it's like a tiny little period of time. You don't just recover the day after you move out of an abusive situation. It takes years, and
you're still waiting for the abuse to happen again regardless.
Right. And honestly,
you don't trust that it's done.
No. And honestly, it's a lifelong process. Like if you go through the kind of abuse that Corey describes, you don't get over that shit ever. No. You talk about like PTSD. These are people with severe PTSD. They carry scars from this.
Butter knives, lighters.
The rest of their life. Who the hell knows? It sounds like she did. She used pretty much every freaking possible thing that she could use to abuse. And I mean, it's disgusting to even think about. We know that in 2012 is when Corey disclosed everything in the English paper and then at the ball game. March 23rd is when his interview happened. He gave his first formal statement that the shooting was intentional and it was under Judith's direction. And so in 2012, the sheriff's office formally reopens that 2003 case. That shifts the case from a closed accident to an open potential homicide investigation. And then New Defiance County Coroner Dr. Akuli reopened the investigation too. He reviewed the original crime scene photos. He reviewed the original 2003 investigative reports. He reviewed Corey's new statements. He consulted with the coroner that was the coroner at the time of the death. And through all of his investigation and everything, he changed the manner of death from accidental to homicide. And a lot of the stuff that came into that was the gun location. We talked about the gun being found on the opposite side of the bed. We talked about, the fact that, and this does come up a lot in the case. And for me, it's never going to mean anything, but it's there. And so I got to talk about it because part of it was the fact that they claimed that CPR had been attempted, but it did not look like CPR had been attempted.
Yeah.
And then there was the close range stippling that I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
Robert had the close range stippling, which, goes to the effect that Corey wasn't standing where he said he was standing when the gun went off. Now, I know that you brought up, but I think in the debrief episode when we were talking about it and you were saying that how could you not know that if there was a bullet in it or not a bullet in it or whatever?
No, I said he didn't think there was one in there.
And I told you that there was a good reason for that and that I would be explaining that to you.
Yes. Are you about to do that?
So what Corey said is he originally got the gun and he went in there and he, pointed it at his dad and he pulled the trigger and it clicked and did nothing. And so then he went into the other room and he didn't know how to he didn't know what to do. And he still doesn't know what he did, but he went back in there. And the second time he fully expected the gun to just click again, at which time he was prepared to tell Judith, I tried, it didn't work. The gun wouldn't work. But the second time the gun went off and it was totally a surprise to him. So if he's telling the truth, then it is almost kind of like an accidental shooting. Yeah, he didn't expect it to actually go off and it did go off, but it definitely would explain why he was just frantic and just destroyed when he called 911, because that's definitely not play acting. If you listen to that 911 call, it's definitely not play acting. Looking at all of these new facts interpreted as a deliberate shooting instead of an accidental shooting, everything really kind of starts to make a lot more sense. So, you've got Corey's detailed statements to the police investigators, and then his statements to Dr. Knox. And Knox would characterize the reported abuse as severe and chronic. His teachers would testify about seeing the bruises on him from a very young age, that he would wear these long sleeve shirts in the middle of the summer and all of this kind of stuff. The teachers believed it without a doubt. They testified that, this kind of all comes full circle now, and it definitely is making a lot of sense that's why he was in long sleeves all the time,
Yeah.
And you kind of got a feel for these teachers too, because teachers are doing the best job that they can do, and they see a kid in long sleeves and everything. And one thing that Corey said is, they would come and talk to him and he wouldn't tell them. And then one of the things that he said in one of the interviews that I watched was if you don't ever stop asking, keep pushing, because,
Eventually they'll say something.
But as a teacher, as any adult, if you go talk to a little kid and you're like, is everything all right, man? Is, why are you wearing these long sleeves? And he's like, this is just my favorite shirt. I just like wearing it. Your instinct is not to be like, now tell me the truth. Why are you really?
Yeah.
Your instinct is like, oh, okay.
That's a cool shirt, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids carried freaking blankets and stuff in this. I mean, little kids get their favorite thing. And it's like, how in the hell can you wear that in the summertime? It's a parka.
You can't live without it.
Yeah. But so my point is, it wouldn't strike me as unusual. I would be like, oh, well, yeah, my kids did that too. So, yep, that makes perfect sense.
But continuously wearing and continuously getting that this is my favorite shirt answer. You don't have 47 favorite shirts, little man. Like, let's talk.
Right. But then I got to be fair. And as a teacher, am I evaluating my students' dresses, you know, the way that they dress every day and being like, why are you wearing long sleeves? I mean, that's not really my focus. Are you being good in class? Yes. Yeah. Do you have any visible bruises? No. Does your behavior act like you're, you know, being beat? No. Okay. Well, I'm probably not going to quiz you extensively about your dress choices every day.
That's true.
I mean, that's me, but I think that that's probably most teachers where it's like, I asked once, he said that was his favorite shirt. Fine. Maybe the kid just gets cold. Maybe the kid likes to wear long sleeves. Like, I don't know. I know I wouldn't have investigated further. It sounds terrible, but I got to be honest and just be like, yeah, it's not something I don't think I would have pursued. I'd have just been like, okay, well, little dude likes wearing long sleeve shit. So whatever. But anyway, and then they started looking into it. Judith is definitely the primary beneficiary of the life insurance policy.
Of course she is.
Interestingly, and this I found very interesting, is of the three, Judith, Gary, Emily, Corey was namely excluded from the life insurance policy.
Really?
Yes. It was written in...
Like he didn't exist.
Well, he existed because it was written in a way it was like, the money goes to Judith, Emily, Garrett, Corey gets nothing.
Oh, wow.
Like, so it was not like he doesn't exist. It was like, he exists, I hate him, and I don't want him to have anything type of wording. Yeah, like he was specifically named as ruled out of the life insurance.
Jeez.
The benefits all of my research shows that she would have received roughly $333,864. If you look at the media reports and stuff about this case, it's $500,000 all over the place. It's $500,000.
People always round up, though. It sounds cleaner.
And I don't know if it's that. I don't know if the difference is it was a $500,000 life insurance once taxes and all that stuff was taken out. What she finally got was $333,000. Yeah. I don't know, but I feel pretty confident that she got $333,000. In 2003, that's not a lot of money.
No.
It's certainly not enough money to freaking commit murder over.
No. Well, not. Is there?
No, but I mean, if it's $7 million, at least you can be like, oh, okay, well, you can live comfortably the rest of your life for $7 million. $333,000 is going to get you a modest home.
Yeah.
If that. Robert had already bought a home. So it's like, you know what I'm getting at? It's not like this huge windfall. It was also noted that Judith began the insurance paperwork immediately after his death. Like she was on the phone with the employer like the next day. Like, let's get the ball rolling on this. Mm-hmm. I want this. And then
it doesn't look fishy at all.
Exactly. And then the funds were later used, like I said, to buy vehicles, to buy recreational items, just to, like so many people blow this money.
Yeah.
The way that they do. Then we also got to talk about the fact that Corey was explicitly not charged at all for this. And I think that a lot of that was his age at the time. I think technically he could have been, because I think by Ohio law, anybody under the age of 10 cannot be charged. Anybody over the age of 10 can. I think technically...
That makes 10 a gray area, yeah.
Yeah, I think technically he could have been charged. But, when they listened to his story and everything, they believed him. And so the prosecutor felt that Corey was a victim. And a lot of that went to the FBI profiler that we talked about, or not profiler, but the FBI child interview specialist who believed him too, and basically said that this is an abused kid. And so that's how the prosecution viewed him, as an abused kid that was forced to kill his own dad. And so the state positioned him as a victim witness as opposed to a murderer. So by early 2013, investigators had Corey's formal statements. They had the coroner's reclassification of this death as a homicide. They had the patterns of abuse that had been established through Corey's testimony. And then they had the insurance documentation and the reports from the employer that the bitch was on the phone like the next day and all of this kind of stuff. Now, I will also just mention, I was going to bring it up earlier and I forgot, but we talked about the extended family. I know we did in episode 1. We also talked about it in debrief where we talked about the extended family. Well, the extended family would go on to say that they tried everything. But before Robert's death, Corey was going and spending time with his grandparents, like I told you. Well, the bitch, the asshat Tina, says, you're going to tell your dad that your grandpa beat you and that you never want to go back again.
Oh, jeez.
And if you don't, you know what's coming. And so Corey said, Grandpa hit me, and he came back. He went and spent time with him. He come back and was like, Grandpa hit me. I don't ever want to go back again. And so then Robert was like, well, bud, you don't ever have to go back. I'm never going to make you go back. But essentially. And
that was mom's parents?
I'm pretty sure. And I wasn't able to confirm that.
Because you'd think Robert would.
Dad, what the hell's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why I think it was most likely his maternal grandparents, because I think that if it would have been his dad, he would have been, first of all, oh yeah, that's my dad. He never beat me. So what's going on?
Yeah.
And number 2, ring, ring, Dad, what the hell's going on? Why is Corey telling me this? So I think that it was most likely the maternal grandparent, but I can't say that for sure. Okay. What I can say pretty much 100% is it never happened. And Corey would say, I loved them. They were like my saving grace, but I was petrified of this bitch. And so I did what she told me to do, but it was just systematically cutting off these familial relationships. And then his aunt and grandparents would say that, they would send him presents for Christmas and birthdays and stuff. Judith wouldn't let him have them. She'd throw them away.
Yeah.
She just would not allow them to have any sort of a relationship with any of his extended family at all. Like as soon as Robert died, that was it.
Yeah.
No more. And the other thing that I kind of forgot to talk about was that the EMTs would testify that day, the day of the shooting, Hawkey was a bitch. That they had Corey in the back of the ambulance. The one EMT said that she, was hugging on him and telling him it was going to be okay and everything. He was bawling his head off. And then the bitch shows up and she said that she told Corey, stop crying. And that he just immediately stopped crying. And then she just pretty much jerked him out of the ambulance and walked off. And she asked the cop, can I take him out of here? And the cop was like, yeah, okay. And so she got him out of the scene, and she's just a bitch. That's just all there is to it. They take all of this stuff before the grand jury, and the grand jury returns a true bill. They return an indictment for aggravated murder, 4 counts of child endangerment, and 1 count of insurance fraud. And so as we kind of go through those charges right quick, so 1 count of aggravated murder, which is a purposeful killing, prior calculation and design, and an allegation, obviously, that she used a child to carry out this murder. 4 counts of child endangerment, covering multiple forms and time periods of abuse, physical abuse, and conduct that created a substantial risk to the health and the safety of a child. And then 1 count of insurance fraud, alleging that she presented false information, that she concealed the true circumstances of the death, and that she collected the life insurance proceeds basically because she lied. And so obviously the news reporting went nuts about this woman that had used a 10-year-old boy to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And the charges were tied to a history of abuse that really go to supporting the murder theory and then the whole insurance thing and everything like that. So in early March of 2013, bitch is arrested in Oakwood, Ohio, where she's living during that time. So almost a full decade after the death. And then she was arraigned on March 12th of 2013, and she entered not guilty pleas on all counts. The judge said, you can kiss my ass, and set her bail at $3 million.
Nice.
So she was held. Yeah. When you get $333,000 from your insurance, you're not going to be able to pay a $3 million bond.
Not so much. No.
So bitch was held without bond. I mean, she could have bonded out, but she couldn't. So she was held in jail pending trial. Prosecutor Mike Morris references that there's new evidence that came to light. Obviously, that was Corey, coming forward. And he emphasized Corey's claims of long-term abuse and that he was compelled to kill his dad. He was basically forced to kill his dad. And obviously the prosecutor's talking about the motive. It was the insurance money. So
disgusting.
Yeah. So as we kind of close out this episode, we've got a bitch, an asshat Tina, who is now finally in jail after all this time. And you know me, I've researched a lot of true crime cases. I've read a lot of stuff. I watch true crime nonstop all the time. Man, this is some of the worst freaking abuse stories that I've heard. Yeah. It's really bad. And I mean, it just, and you think about, like, you see pictures of this little boy. He's one of the cutest little kids in the world. Like, he's at 10 years old. He's this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just a cute kid, and you think about this little guy being treated that way, and it's just, God, it just breaks your freaking heart. And
it makes you want to break her freaking neck.
Yeah, and you're really going to be upset as we, in episode 3.
Yeah,
we do episode 3, you're not going to be.
I'm very excited about it. Can you tell?
Yeah, I can definitely tell. So, as you know, Dark Dialogue, we don't treat victims like they're plot points or plot twists. We don't rush past a name to get back to the evidence. We stop and we remember, because behind every affidavit and every courtroom argument is a human life. And in this story, that life is Robert Lee Breininger, a father, a husband, a man who worked steel mill shifts and came home to a life that should have been just ordinary. And Robert's life ended on November 3rd, 2003. That is the fixed point in this case. No matter how the story shifts, no matter what new details emerge, that fact does not move. But as this arc continues, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. The 10-year-old boy who was in that house that night did not walk away unchanged. Episode 1 focused on Robert, on who he was and what was lost. Episode 2 forces us to look at something harder, not just the death of a father, but the life of a child who grew up inside the shadow of that day. Whatever listeners ultimately believe about responsibility or coercion, two realities sit side by side. A father is gone, and a child carried that moment into his adulthood. Tonight's tribute is still for Robert. It will always begin with him, but it also acknowledges the weight borne by a child who would spend years trying to explain what happened in that bedroom. The music you're about to hear is Beyond the Veil by the J.J. Hawk Band. And I chose it because it doesn't sensationalize grief. It doesn't dramatize tragedy. It stays steady, stays grounded, and it gives space for remembrance without turning pain into spectacle. as this arc continues, the meaning of that steadiness grows. So tonight, let it remind us of the human cost, not just of death, but of everything that follows. This is Beyond the Veil by the J.J. Hawk Band. And this is Robert Lee Breininger. Robert Lee Breininger was 34 years old when he died. That number matters. 34 is not the end of a life. It's just the middle of it. By 2003, Robert had built what many people in Northwest Ohio would recognize as a solid life. Steady work at Still Dynamics, a home, children under his roof, responsibility carried quietly without performance. He worked nights, he slept during the day. He did what shift workers do, traded time and exhaustion for stability. There's something deeply ordinary about that. And in many ways, that's the point. Robert's life was not dramatic. It was structured, measured in pay periods, measured in hunting seasons, measured in showing up. After his first marriage ended, he became the primary parent for a time. He leaned on extended family, but he kept his son rooted. That kind of fatherhood doesn't draw headlines, it draws routines. It builds memory in small increments. And for a 10-year-old boy, routine is everything. A father going to work, a father sleeping down the hall, a father who exists as a fixed point in the house. On November 3rd, 2003, that fixed point disappeared. A sleeping father, a single gunshot, a life ending in a bedroom that should have been safe. For years, the public description of that moment was simple, an accident. But the simplicity of that word doesn't change what was lost. A child lost his father at 10 years old. Whether through accident, coercion, manipulation, or tragedy, the result is the same. Robert did not wake up. And a boy grew up without him. In later interviews, Corey has said that he would give anything for just one more day with his dad. Not one more explanation, not one more hearing, one more ordinary day. That longing tells you something. Whatever version of events a jury weighs, whatever arguments are made about responsibility, what remains constant is absence. A father gone, a son grew up carrying that absence. And as we move deeper into this case, into the allegations, into testimony, into competing narratives, it's important to hold on to that center. The story is not just about motive. It's not just about legal theory. It began with a father whose life stopped at 34 and a child whose life split in two on the same day. So tonight, we remember Robert Lee Breininger, a man of routine, a father of quiet responsibility, a life measured, not in headlines, but in the years that should have followed.
Break through the night, a blaze of gold, my guiding light. I see the dawn, break through the night, a blaze of gold, my guiding light. I see the dawn, break through the night, a blaze of gold, my guiding light. Beyond the veil, I'll rise again, through the ashes, through the pain, every tear of fire remains. Beyond the veil, I'll rise again.
So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, this is the moment where you can directly help this show grow. Follow the show so that you never miss an episode in this arc. Tap the 3 dots and hit follow. If you've already followed, scroll down and leave a written review. Ratings matter, but written reviews move the algorithm. Share this episode directly from Apple Podcasts to someone who needs to hear it. That engagement is what keeps this show visible.
And if this case matters to you beyond listening, there are ways to take action. The Dark Dialogue Collective is not a donation tier. It's boots on the ground volunteer work. Physical searches, victim and family support, real world action when families need it. If that's you, reach out.
Our Adopt a Victim program is live at darkdialogue.com. It is for unsolved cases only, unsolved, unresolved cases. You can adopt a victim and help us research, work to identify unnamed victims, work to find the killers of identified victims, work to find the bodies of missing victims, or work all those angles. Everything you need to get started is there. Victim blog posts are also available at that same place. And if you want deeper written breakdowns and ongoing case documentation, that's where they live.
If you want to support the show directly, Patreon at patreon.com/darkdialoguepod for recurring support, and the debrief at ko-fi.com/darkdialogue for one-time contributions. We also publish extended case writing and updates on Substack at darkdialoguecrime.substack.com. If you have case information, research leads, or need to contact us directly, info@darkdialogue.com is where you go for that. Across the network, you can also find Rocky Mountain Reckoning, Dark Dialogue Distilled, Dark Dialogue Unraveled Truths, Gallows and Gunfights, and Dark Dialogue Shadow Chat Sessions.
And to your point, Angela, we're really working hard to make it really beneficial to be a Patreon subscriber. Yeah. And so the debrief is going to be posted there exclusively for our Patreon members. And I'm continuing to grow all the perks and advantages to being a supporter.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff. Cool.
Happening.
Behind the scenes stuff, deeper dives, both audio and then also in written form. And then also the merch shop is open. So get out there, get yourself. I did just get a Don't Be an Asshat sweatshirt. It came in the mail today.
Oh, did it? Do you like it?
It's freaking badass. Yeah, the quality is freaking awesome.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's really nice. And so, yeah. Merch shop is open. You can find that on our website. Go to darkdialogue.com. Go to shop, and all of it's out there.
Dare I say that discount codes might show up in the Patreon information?
Oh yeah, I think for sure. I think Patreon supporters are going to get a hard and fast discount. And then I think it's also really important to note that we do have our Voices collection out there. There's Voices collection for both men and for women. 10% of all profits from the Voices collection go directly to supporting victims, and then 5% of all of the Rocky Mountain Reckoning items go to supporting victims and their families in the Rocky Mountain region. So check all that out. There's some really cool stuff. It's not just Dark Dialogue merch. It's not just, we didn't just go out there and slap our logo on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different designs. There's all kinds of different logos. So check it all out. And there's all kinds of products.
Some are limited, so if you want something, you should probably jump on it.
Oh yeah, some are definitely limited. It's going to kind of come and go. So yeah. So check it out, see what you like, see, what you want to add to your collection. There's tumblers, there's coffee cups, there's pillows, blankets, sweatshirts, t-shirts, all the things.
There's a candle I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, there's candles. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And so, so again, that's darkdialogue.com. Hit the shop button and it'll take you right there and you can check out all the stuff.
And don't be an asshat.
And don't be an asshat, and don't be an asshat Tina, which I might have to come out with a new line of asshat Tina wear. Also, be sure to follow, subscribe, turn on notifications, share the episode, leave a review, and that's how all of this grows. So that's how you help us grow. So With that, keep listening, keep researching, stay vigilant, take care of yourselves, and keep the dialogue alive.